They dumped 6 million refugees on Earth as punishment. We chose compassion, not cruelty. The sky was quiet that morning. A soft pale blue stretched over the cities and fields of Earth. Birds flew lazily, and the wind whispered through trees. People went about their routines, unaware that the world was about to change forever. Then, without warning, something extraordinary appeared above the atmosphere. Massive ships, glowing faintly, hovered in the skies over every continent. They were unlike any human craft, enormous and silver, their surfaces shimmering as if alive. Panic spread quickly. News networks interrupted programming, showing images of the ships from every city. People stared in awe and fear, trying to understand what they were seeing. Governments scrambled. Military forces scrambled jets and sensors, but nothing worked. The ships moved as though they ignored Earth's gravity, and no weapon seemed capable of reaching them. Then, the first transport pods began to fall. At first, they looked like tiny meteors. They streaked across the sky, glowing as they entered the atmosphere. Soon, it became clear that each pod contained living beings. 6 million refugees poured from the ships, dropped on Earth without warning, without choice. They came from worlds ravaged by war, from planets whose skies had burned and oceans had dried. Families, children, scientists, artists, and elders fell to Earth. The initial response was chaos. Streets filled with people trying to escape or see what was happening. Hospitals and shelters were overwhelmed. Governments called emergency meetings, debating whether to help, to quarantine, or to push them back. "This is an invasion," some leaders whispered. "We cannot survive 6 million strangers at once." Others feared what the alien ships might do next. The tension was thick, almost suffocating. Amara, a young engineer from Earth's north continent, watched the events unfold from the window of her apartment. Her hands trembled, but her mind raced. She had always believed in human problem-solving, and now it was needed more than ever. She saw neighbors rushing past with supplies, people helping one another, carrying children to safety. Amid the fear, she noticed the first signs of something remarkable: ordinary humans choosing to act, not flee. In the streets, volunteers formed spontaneously. Farmers brought fresh food, setting up makeshift distribution points. Teachers organized temporary learning spaces for children who were confused and scared. Doctors and nurses worked tirelessly, tending to injuries and illnesses caused by the fall. Even local engineers began constructing temporary shelters using available materials. Humanity was being tested, and many rose to the challenge with courage and empathy. Yet, fear was never far. Some communities resisted. Militias armed themselves, patrolling borders of cities to keep the refugees out. People shouted, "We cannot feed them, they will take everything." Others whispered about retaliation, about preparing for war against the alien ships. But amid these voices of fear, a stronger, quieter force grew: cooperation. Humans were learning that survival alone would not be enough. Compassion was also a weapon, and they wielded it with care. Amara joined a small group of engineers and volunteers in the city center. Their goal was simple but urgent: provide temporary housing and medical support. They converted stadiums, empty warehouses, and office buildings into shelters. They worked day and night, building safe spaces, connecting power sources, and arranging food distribution. Refugees were often frightened, speaking languages unknown to the volunteers, but gestures, patience, and smiles bridged the gaps. Humans and newcomers began to see each other not as strangers, but as fellow beings struggling to survive together. Meanwhile, the alien ships hovered silently above. They did not attack, did not speak, but their presence was oppressive. A message arrived on every screen, written in multiple languages. "This is your punishment. 6 million of our people are placed upon your world. Fail to provide for them, fail to act with humanity, and your world will be judged unworthy of life." The message was cold, final, and terrifying. Yet humans did not collapse under fear. Instead, they organized. Governments, city councils, and volunteers formed alliances. Scientists and engineers worked with refugees to map resources and plan sustainable solutions. Children shared games and stories with refugee children, easing the trauma and fear. The world was shaken, but it was not broken. Humanity began to show the traits that had always made it special: ingenuity, empathy, and determination to do what was right even when it was hard. Amara worked late into the night, poring over alien data left behind in the transport pods. Strange symbols, strange machines, even technology unlike anything Earth had ever known. Her instincts told her these were clues, that the aliens wanted more than simple observation. They wanted to see how humans responded, not just to the refugees but to the challenge as a whole. Her team began deciphering patterns, and slowly, a picture emerged. The aliens were testing moral choices, coordination, and resilience. In the shelters, humans learned quickly how to integrate the newcomers. Food distribution became organized and fair. Medical care was provided to all, regardless of origin. Engineers adapted infrastructure to cope with the sudden population increase. Refugees contributed their own knowledge, agriculture techniques, energy systems, and medical methods from other planets. Humanity realized that helping was not just an ethical choice, it was practical. Collaboration made them stronger. Yet not all humans accepted this approach. Some factions advocated harsh measures. "They are aliens," they said. "They take our jobs, our resources. They will weaken us." But the majority rejected fear and cruelty. Leaders like Amara and countless others in small communities argued for compassion as a strategy, not just a moral stance. They organized forums, discussions, and shared stories to foster understanding. Humanity was discovering that courage included protecting the vulnerable, even when the cost was high. News of Earth's response spread rapidly. Other planets, observing the situation from afar, began to take note. Humans did not just survive the arrival, they were learning, adapting, and thriving in ways that surprised even themselves. Neighborhoods formed councils that combined human citizens and refugees, planning together. Teachers developed combined curriculums for children of all worlds. Farmers shared irrigation methods from their planets with refugees' expertise, improving crop yields. Humanity was showing that it could turn punishment into opportunity. Amara found herself in a particularly delicate task, coordinating temporary shelters in the city's most crowded district. Thousands of refugees were arriving daily, and conditions were tight. She worked alongside refugee leaders, listening to their suggestions and learning their languages slowly. Together, they mapped out areas for sleeping, cooking, and medical aid. Every decision required care, every choice was vital. In this, she saw a vision of humanity at its best: patient, creative, and compassionate. Even children played a crucial role. Schools turned into support centers, where kids helped each other and taught games to refugee children. Stories and songs became bridges between worlds. Amara often walked past these centers and saw fear give way to laughter. It was in these moments that she realized something essential: compassion was contagious, and humanity had the power to spread it. As days passed, Amara noticed patterns in the alien drop points. Certain areas had higher concentrations of pods, while others were strangely empty. She hypothesized that the aliens were observing more than the immediate response. They were measuring coordination, efficiency, and ethical choices. Her findings sparked debates among engineers and scientists. Could they learn enough to influence the aliens' judgment? Could humanity not only survive but also prove its worth? Meanwhile, the human spirit continued to shine. Neighborhoods shared water, volunteers helped build makeshift hospitals, and engineers adapted power grids to cope with increased demand. Refugees offered knowledge, including methods for clean energy, disease control, and advanced medicine. Communities that were once divided by politics or geography came together, united by a common goal. Humanity was learning that compassion was not a weakness, it was the strongest form of intelligence. Despite the mounting challenges, Earth did not collapse. News outlets reported stories of courage and kindness. A farmer giving up half his crops, a young student translating for refugees, doctors working without sleep to save lives. Humans showed that even under pressure, empathy and ingenuity could overcome fear. It was not perfect. Conflicts arose, tensions flared, and mistakes were made. But each time, humans found a way to recover, adapt, and continue. By the end of the first week, Earth had stabilized enough to start larger projects. Engineers began building permanent housing solutions. Scientists worked on sustainable food and water systems. Communities held meetings to discuss long-term integration of refugees. Amara, exhausted but inspired, reflected on what they had accomplished. Humanity had faced the impossible and chosen not to falter. Above it all, the alien ships continued to hover silently. No one knew when they might leave or what the next test might be. But humanity had already shown a remarkable truth. When challenged, humans could rise above fear and selfishness. Compassion, intelligence, and collaboration were their weapons. And even in the face of alien scrutiny, Earth was showing that humanity could meet any challenge with courage and heart. Amara looked up at the sky one evening, the setting sun casting long shadows across the city. The ships glinted faintly in the distance, a constant reminder of the test they faced. Yet she felt hope, a deep conviction that humanity would succeed, not because of power or dominance, but because they had chosen the hardest path, to help, to share, and to care. 6 million refugees had arrived as punishment, but humanity had chosen compassion. And in that choice lay the beginning of something extraordinary. The story of humanity had begun to be rewritten that week, not with war, not with fear, but with empathy, courage, and brilliant ingenuity. And for the first time, the universe might truly see what humans were capable of. The days after the arrival of the 6 million refugees were intense. Earth's cities were buzzing with activity. Streets that once held quiet traffic now teemed with volunteers, emergency responders, engineers, and refugees, all moving together in a fragile but determined rhythm. Resources were limited, and the world was already struggling to maintain balance, yet humans were finding ways to make it work. The spirit of cooperation had begun to take root, and it was growing stronger every day. Amara was busy coordinating housing projects in one of the largest refugee settlement areas near the city. The challenge was immense. Thousands of people had nowhere to go, and basic necessities like clean water, food, and medical care were under constant pressure. Yet she refused to give in to despair. Every day she walked the crowded streets, listening to both refugees and volunteers, finding small ways to improve life. The simplest ideas often worked best: a shared garden, a makeshift clinic, or even a safe play area for children. Engineers and scientists were working tirelessly to make temporary shelters functional and safe. They had built modular structures that could be quickly assembled, powered by a combination of solar panels and generators. Freshwater purification units were installed near streams and lakes, and teams of volunteers distributed food rations daily. Refugees contributed wherever they could, sharing knowledge from their home planets, teaching new farming techniques, and helping with repairs. Humanity was discovering that compassion and cooperation were not just moral choices, they were survival strategies. Despite the efforts, challenges kept coming. Diseases spread quickly in crowded shelters, and some food supplies spoiled in the heat. The constant arrival of new refugees stretched the system further. Tensions began to rise in some areas as locals and refugees struggled to coexist. Arguments broke out over limited resources, misunderstandings due to language barriers, and simple human stress. But even in these moments, solutions emerged. Translators were organized, rules were written collaboratively, and community leaders from both humans and refugees worked together to restore peace. Amara found herself working closely with a refugee scientist named Lior. He was from a planet where water was scarce, and his knowledge of purification systems proved invaluable. Together, they redesigned the city's water distribution network to handle the sudden increase in population. It was delicate work, requiring patience and constant adjustments. Yet every success brought a small but meaningful victory, a reminder that humans and refugees could build something better together. Education was another urgent need. Children of all ages had been uprooted from their homes, and their learning had been interrupted. Teachers set up temporary schools in shelters and community centers. They improvised with whatever they had: books, digital tablets, and lessons in teamwork. Refugee children brought their own stories, games, and ideas, enriching the lessons. Amara often visited these classrooms, watching as children learned to cooperate, share, and adapt. In their laughter and curiosity, she saw the promise of the future. The media began to notice the efforts, broadcasting stories of courage and ingenuity from around the world. Volunteers were praised for their tireless work. Communities shared innovative solutions, from rooftop gardens to mobile clinics. Even small towns far from the refugee centers found ways to contribute, donating food, supplies, and manpower. Humanity's response was becoming an example, showing that it was possible to face a crisis with dignity, compassion, and intelligence. But the alien ships remained a silent presence above. Their monitors recorded every action, every decision. People felt the weight of unseen eyes constantly evaluating them. Amara sometimes wondered what the aliens thought, whether they were impressed or disappointed. She could not see their faces, could not understand their motives fully. All she could do was focus on helping those around her, trusting that humanity's values would shine through. Meanwhile, Earth's governments began collaborating more than ever. Policies were drafted to ensure fair treatment of refugees. Scientists, engineers, and city planners coordinated large-scale infrastructure projects. Roads, hospitals, and water systems were rapidly upgraded. Refugees who were doctors, engineers, or teachers were integrated into these efforts. Their knowledge was not just welcomed, it was essential. Together, humans and newcomers were creating a functional, thriving society in the middle of what could have been disaster. Amara spent many nights analyzing the alien drop patterns. She noticed irregularities. Some regions had far more pods than others. Some areas were untouched. She hypothesized that the aliens were not just testing survival, but also humanity's organizational abilities and ethical choices. To confirm this, she worked with Lior and a small team of engineers to map the arrivals, noting which areas responded best, which had the most cooperation, and where tensions were highest. Patterns began to emerge, hinting at what the aliens might value most: collaboration, fairness, and empathy under pressure. While adults worked tirelessly, children continued to surprise everyone. In one district, a group of local and refugee children created a small recycling project, collecting waste and turning it into building materials for shelters. Another group established a library using scavenged books and digital resources, where children could learn and share stories from their worlds. Even in the smallest acts, humans showed ingenuity and heart, proving that every individual could contribute to the greater good. Amid all this activity, some voices of fear and skepticism remained. Certain groups argued that Earth could not sustain 6 million newcomers. They claimed that resources would run out, that disease would spread, and that conflicts were inevitable. Some even suggested isolating refugees or sending them away, despite the aliens' warning. But the majority of humanity continued to reject such measures. Leaders emphasized that turning away those in need would not only fail morally, but also practically. Cooperation and compassion had already created functioning communities where survival alone would have been impossible. One day, Amara and Lior discovered something remarkable. In one of the larger pods, a small device had survived the landing. It emitted a soft, pulsing light and contained data on advanced energy systems. Together, They studied the device, learning new methods for clean energy and sustainable living. This discovery sparked excitement. If humans could integrate this technology with their own systems, they could provide more for the refugees and even improve life for everyone. Humanity was beginning to see opportunity in what at first seemed like punishment. The aliens continued to observe, yet there were no new attacks, no further drops. Their silence was unsettling, but it allowed humans and refugees to focus on building. In the shelters, people began sharing more than just survival skills. They shared cultures, languages, recipes, and stories. Music from other planets blended with Earth's melodies. Art was painted, crafted, and displayed in the makeshift centers. Humanity was learning that compassion was not only practical, it could inspire creativity, hope, and connection. Challenges, however, were never fully gone. Storms damaged temporary shelters, food shipments were delayed, and occasional outbreaks of disease required quick action. Yet every time, humans adapted. Teams repaired buildings, coordinated relief efforts, and developed new systems to prevent similar problems. Refugees worked alongside locals, bringing their own experiences and solutions. Every success reinforced the lesson that working together was stronger than working apart. Amara often reflected on what she was witnessing. Fear and despair were real, yet they were being overcome by resilience, courage, and empathy. Humanity was not perfect, but it was remarkable in its ability to rise to challenges, to care for others even when under pressure. Even the alien message, cold and threatening, could not break the spirit of cooperation that had grown among humans and refugees alike. In one memorable moment, a group of volunteers organized a celebration for the children. Food was shared, music played, and stories were told. Refugees from different planets shared tales of their homes, of struggles and victories. Local children asked questions, laughed, and formed bonds that might last a lifetime. Adults watched, moved by the simple but profound power of compassion. In a world threatened by judgment and scarcity, humanity had chosen connection, kindness, and ingenuity. By the end of the second week, progress was evident. Cities were adapting, communities were cooperating, and humans and refugees were learning from one another. Amara had mapped much of the arrival pattern and realized that every act of compassion, every cooperative decision, was likely being monitored by the alien observers. She felt a mixture of pride and responsibility. Humanity was under scrutiny, yet it was performing beautifully, not through force, but through empathy, creativity, and persistence. Despite exhaustion, Amara and her team continued their work. Engineers improved shelter designs, scientists worked on sustainable energy, and doctors expanded medical facilities. Volunteers organized educational programs and cultural exchanges. Refugees contributed with unique skills and experiences, enhancing every effort. Humanity was learning that helping others was not a burden, but a path to growth, understanding, and success. Even in the face of challenges, humans refused to succumb to fear. Communities adapted, collaborated, and improved. Technology from the aliens' pods offered new possibilities. Children taught lessons in creativity and cooperation. Adults demonstrated leadership and perseverance. And above it all, the silent alien ships watched, recording humanity's every action, every decision, and every choice. By the end of the second part of the story, it was clear that Earth was transforming. What began as a punishment was slowly becoming a demonstration of humanity's greatest strengths: ingenuity, resilience, and compassion. The world had faced 6 million refugees with courage and heart. Humanity was proving that survival alone was not enough. They could thrive through kindness, intelligence, and cooperation. Amara stood on a hill overlooking the city one evening. Smoke from cooking fires rose among the shelters. Children played in the streets, laughter ringing through the air. Volunteers coordinated relief efforts, refugees contributed ideas, and everyone worked side by side. The alien ships glimmered faintly in the sky, observing silently. For the first time, Amara felt that humanity was not just surviving a test, they were passing it in the most remarkable way. The challenge was far from over, but humanity had shown its heart. Compassion had become its strength, ingenuity its weapon, and unity its shield. Earth was not only coping, it was inspiring. And as the world looked toward the uncertain future, humans were ready to face whatever came next with courage, creativity, and unwavering compassion. Life on Earth had settled into a new rhythm, yet the challenges were far from over. The 6 million refugees had been integrated into society as best as possible, but Earth was still under strain. Food and water were abundant compared to the first days, but resources were stretched thin. The alien ships continued to hover silently above the planet, their presence a constant reminder that humanity's actions were being watched and evaluated. The message had been clear from the start. This was a test. How humans responded under pressure would decide their fate. Amara had never felt more responsibility in her life. As an engineer and coordinator, she had to ensure that the systems supporting millions of people continued to function. She walked through the streets of the largest refugee settlement, observing children playing, families settling into their new homes, and volunteers carrying out their daily routines. It was encouraging to see the human spirit so resilient, yet she knew the real tests were only beginning. The aliens had already shown they could observe humanity from afar, but now they introduced subtle challenges. Extreme weather events struck without warning. Severe storms flooded parts of the city, forcing rapid evacuations. Engineers and volunteers worked tirelessly to reinforce shelters and repair damage. Water distribution systems were tested to the limit as pipes burst under pressure, and medical teams dealt with injuries and illnesses caused by the sudden floods. In every case, humans responded with ingenuity, courage, and calm. In one district, Amara led a team to repair a collapsed bridge that connected two major settlements. Refugees who had experience with construction on their home planets joined her, offering techniques and ideas that improved the design. Together, they rebuilt the bridge stronger and faster than anyone thought possible. This small victory was a testament to human resilience. When humans and refugees collaborated, challenges became opportunities for growth and innovation. Education and childcare remained vital. Schools had expanded rapidly, and children were thriving in mixed classrooms of human and refugee students. They shared games, songs, and stories from their own worlds, learning empathy and creativity along the way. Teachers noted that the children's ability to solve problems together improved daily. Even the smallest acts, sharing a toy, helping a friend, or explaining a new game, became lessons in humanity's unique strengths: cooperation, curiosity, and compassion. One day, an unexpected problem arose. A sudden food shortage hit one of the largest refugee settlements due to a delay in shipments. Panic began to spread, and tempers flared. Some humans feared there would not be enough to share, while some refugees worried that the shortage meant abandonment. Amara acted quickly. She organized volunteers to distribute emergency rations, coordinated with nearby settlements for additional supplies, and worked with refugee leaders to maintain calm. Within hours, the crisis was managed. Humans and refugees had come together under pressure, proving once again that compassion and planning could overcome fear. Amara also noticed that the alien ships seemed to respond to humanity's actions in subtle ways. Storms that threatened to be catastrophic often weakened after humans intervened. Areas that showed remarkable cooperation seemed to remain untouched by damage, while regions with conflict or inefficiency experienced more severe consequences. It became clear that the aliens were not only testing survival, they were observing the choices humans made when faced with adversity. In the medical centers, doctors and refugee healers collaborated to treat patients. Diseases that could have spread rapidly were contained through coordinated efforts. Refugees shared medical knowledge from their planets, introducing new treatments and hygiene methods. Humans adapted quickly, learning and implementing these techniques. It was a perfect example of humanity's strength, the ability to learn, adapt, and work with others, even under extreme pressure. Amara spent hours with Lior and their team analyzing alien technology found in the transport pods. They discovered energy devices that could store and distribute power more efficiently than any system on Earth. By integrating this technology, they were able to provide electricity to shelters, hospitals, and schools without interruption. This not only improved living conditions, but also reduced tension among humans and refugees. The aliens, it seemed, were allowing humanity to find solutions, rewarding innovation and cooperation. Even social challenges were addressed creatively. Cultural differences initially caused misunderstandings, but humans and refugees worked together to create forums where disputes could be discussed openly and resolved peacefully. Festivals and communal events celebrated diversity and unity. Music, art, and storytelling became tools for connection, teaching empathy and shared understanding. Through these efforts, humans proved that moral courage was as important as physical survival. Meanwhile, some groups of humans continued to resist the integration of refugees. They argued that resources were limited and that the newcomers would weaken Earth's society. Amara knew that fear and prejudice were natural responses, but she also knew that humanity had the ability to rise above them. Volunteer leaders and refugee coordinators worked to engage skeptics, showing them examples of successful collaboration and the benefits of compassion. Slowly, even the most hesitant began to contribute, understanding that unity was not just ethical, it was essential. One evening, while monitoring resource distribution, Amara noticed a critical problem. A power surge in one of the main energy grids threatened to shut down several refugee shelters. Without electricity, water purification systems and medical devices would fail. Panic could have spread quickly, but humans and refugees acted decisively. Engineers rerouted energy, volunteers assisted in manually operating essential systems, and children even helped by carrying small supplies between shelters. The crisis was avoided, and the team celebrated a small but significant victory. It was another reminder that humanity's greatest strength lay not in individuals but in collective effort. In the midst of these challenges, humans continued to innovate. Rooftop gardens were established to supplement food supply. Rainwater collection systems were expanded to provide clean water efficiently. Schools integrated practical lessons in science, engineering, and ethics, teaching children not just knowledge, but responsibility and compassion. The entire society was learning to function as a unified organism, where every action had meaning and impact. Amara often reflected on the resilience she saw every day. Fear, uncertainty, and danger were constant companions, yet humans consistently chose courage and cooperation over selfishness. Refugees were not passive observers. They contributed knowledge, creativity, and solutions. In every challenge, humanity demonstrated a remarkable truth. Survival alone was not enough, but compassion, intelligence, and adaptability could overcome almost any obstacle. The alien observers continued to watch, perhaps impressed, perhaps skeptical. But every storm weathered, every bridge repaired, every dispute resolved peacefully added to humanity's record. The quiet victories of ordinary people, volunteers, children, teachers, engineers, spoke louder than any military force or weapon ever could. Humanity's strength was in its heart as much as in its mind. One morning, a group of children discovered a damaged refugee pod containing small machines they had never seen. Curious and fearless, they began experimenting, learning to operate the devices under the guidance of engineers. The machines proved capable of filtering water, generating electricity, and assisting in medical treatments. By combining curiosity, intelligence, and teamwork, the children had contributed to solving practical problems that adults had struggled with for days. Humanity's ingenuity was evident at every age. Meanwhile, Amara and Lior discovered that the aliens had embedded subtle patterns in the drop locations of the pods. These patterns appeared to reward cooperative behavior. Regions where humans and refugees worked together efficiently were more stable, while regions with conflict experienced more difficulties. It became clear that the aliens were testing not just survival, but the moral and ethical choices humans made under pressure. The stakes were higher than anyone had imagined. As weeks passed, humanity continued to face trials. Severe weather events, resource shortages, and social tensions tested their limits. Each time, humans and refugees rose to the challenge with courage and creativity. Engineers devised innovative solutions. Doctors implemented new medical techniques. Teachers created learning programs, and children found ways to contribute meaningfully. Every challenge was met not with despair, but with determination, proving that humans could thrive even in the most difficult circumstances. Amara often walked through the settlements in the evening, observing the interactions between humans and refugees. She saw laughter and cooperation, teaching and learning, problem-solving and creativity. Even in adversity, people were building a better society together. It was in these moments that she understood the true test. The aliens were not looking for power or weapons, but the human capacity for compassion, collaboration, and ingenuity. One particularly severe storm struck without warning, threatening the newly built shelters in one city. Flooding was imminent, and electrical systems risked failure. Amara, Lior, and their teams coordinated evacuation efforts, reinforced structures, and ensured water purification systems remained operational. Volunteers carried supplies and assisted families to safe zones. Refugees contributed their own methods, showing how they managed similar disasters on their home planets. By working together, the storm passed without major casualties. Humanity's courage, resourcefulness, and care had turned potential disaster into triumph. By the end of this phase, Earth had become a planet transformed. Humans and refugees had proven that cooperation and compassion were more powerful than fear and selfishness. The cities were functioning, shelters were stable, and society was thriving under unprecedented pressure. Humanity had passed countless small tests, showing that they could rise to challenges not through domination, but through empathy, intelligence, and unity. Amara stood on a hill one evening, watching the sun set behind the city skyline. The alien ships glimmered faintly above, silent observers of humanity's efforts. Children played, volunteers worked, and families shared meals together. The refugee settlements had become vibrant communities. Humanity had faced the impossible and chosen the hardest path, compassion over cruelty, collaboration over isolation. And in that choice, they had revealed something extraordinary about themselves. The stage was set for the final test. Humans had proven ingenuity, resilience, and moral courage. But the aliens' challenge was not yet complete. Something greater loomed on the horizon, a trial that would test not just survival and intelligence, but the very character of humanity. For now, though, Earth stood strong. Its people had shown the galaxy that compassion was not weakness, and that when humans and refugees worked together, no challenge was insurmountable. Humanity's story was being rewritten. What had begun as punishment had become a remarkable demonstration of unity, courage, and moral strength. Amara knew that the coming trials would demand even more, but she was confident. Humans would rise to them, just as they always had. Compassion, ingenuity, and courage would guide their path. And whatever the aliens had planned next, humanity would meet it with the best qualities they had shown the universe so far. The alien ships remained silently above Earth, their enormous forms reflecting the light of the sun. For months, humans had faced the unexpected arrival of 6 million refugees, managing crises, creating solutions, and learning to live together. Yet the presence of the ships was a constant reminder that the ultimate test was not yet over. The aliens had observed every decision, every act of compassion, and every choice humanity had made. Now, the final phase of the challenge had begun. It started with subtle changes in the environment. Local weather patterns became extreme and unpredictable. Storms erupted suddenly, floods threatened settlements, and heat waves tested water supplies. Simultaneously, some regions experienced technical anomalies. Power grids failed, water purification systems malfunctioned, and communication networks went down. The aliens were testing how humans and refugees would respond when multiple crises occurred at once. Amara was at the heart of the response. She coordinated teams of engineers, scientists, volunteers, and refugee leaders to monitor and repair systems. Each new challenge required quick thinking and careful planning. Engineers rerouted power through alternative grids, scientists devised emergency water filtration methods, and volunteers ensured that people were moved to safe zones. Refugees contributed their knowledge and experience, guiding the teams with techniques from their home worlds. Humanity was once again proving its ability to adapt and collaborate under pressure. In one city, the flooding of a river threatened to destroy a newly built settlement. Amara and Lior led a team of volunteers and refugees to construct temporary barriers, redirecting the water into safe channels. Engineers worked day and night to reinforce structures, while children and elders assisted by carrying materials, monitoring water levels, and keeping morale high. Within hours, the crisis was managed. It was a testament to human ingenuity and perseverance. A seemingly impossible disaster turned into an example of cooperation at its finest. Amara observed something remarkable. The aliens' subtle manipulations seemed to highlight moments of choice, putting humans in situations where selfishness could be the easier option. In one area, a limited supply of food was available, enough to save some but not all. Many expected humans to hoard or prioritize themselves, yet volunteers organized fair distribution systems. Refugees were included equally, and families were given support regardless of origin. The aliens' test was moral, and humanity's response was clear. Compassion outweighed fear and selfishness. Schools and learning centers continued to play a vital role. Teachers, humans and refugees alike, expanded lessons to include practical problem-solving under crisis conditions. Children were learning skills that went beyond reading and writing: leadership, collaboration, and empathy. They devised their own small solutions for local problems, like cleaning water sources or organizing communal gardens. The youngest members of society became active participants in the demonstration of humanity's resilience and ingenuity. Meanwhile, Amara's team uncovered more alien technology left behind in transport pods. These devices contained advanced energy storage systems and emergency medical tools. Working together, humans and refugees integrated the technology into shelters, hospitals, and schools. Electricity became more stable, water systems more reliable, and medical care more effective. Every small success reinforced the lesson that working together, sharing knowledge, and combining strengths could overcome even the most difficult challenges. As the days passed, the aliens escalated the test further. They created resource shortages that affected multiple regions simultaneously. Storms cut off supply routes, power outages disrupted coordination, and local conflicts threatened cooperation. The true pressure of the challenge was being revealed. It was not only about surviving a single crisis but maintaining compassion, efficiency, and unity when everything was under stress. Amara and Lior worked tirelessly, coordinating emergency response teams across multiple cities. Volunteers acted as messengers, engineers repaired infrastructure, and medical personnel ensured that no one went without care. Refugees shared their experiences dealing with disasters on their own planets, offering practical solutions and innovative ideas. The combined efforts of humans and newcomers were extraordinary. Every decision reflected intelligence, adaptability, and moral courage. In one notable incident, a powerful storm struck a densely populated area. Floodwaters rose rapidly, threatening both humans and refugees. Evacuations were complicated by the large number of people and the fragility of some shelters. Amara led teams to guide everyone to higher ground, using temporary bridges, rafts, and improvised walkways. Volunteers stayed behind to ensure that no one was left behind, even risking their own safety. By nightfall, all were safe. The aliens, observing silently, recorded the unselfish efforts, every choice proving humanity's strength in character. Amara realized that the aliens' test was more than survival, it was a demonstration of values. Power, technology, and weapons were irrelevant. What mattered was how humans treated one another, how they responded to crises, and whether they could maintain moral integrity under pressure. Humanity's answer was clear. Collaboration, compassion, and courage would always come first. Communities continued to adapt creatively. Rooftop gardens provided food during shortages. Rainwater collection systems ensured access to clean water, and refugee scientists helped improve energy efficiency in shelters. Cultural exchange programs flourished. Music, art, and storytelling became bridges between humans and refugees, fostering understanding and connection. The alien test had inadvertently strengthened Earth's society, turning fear and challenge into opportunity. Amara often walked through the settlements in the evening, watching children laugh and play, volunteers coordinate logistics, and families share meals. Despite exhaustion, despite constant crises, humanity had found a rhythm of resilience. The aliens were watching, but humans were not acting for approval. They were acting because it was right. Every act of kindness, every moment of courage, and every solution born from cooperation sent a clear message. Humanity could meet the highest standards of morality and ingenuity. One night, as Amara and Lior analyzed incoming data, they discovered a message embedded in the alien technology. It was not a threat or a command, but a recognition. Earth had passed the initial phases of evaluation. The aliens had observed humanity's response to crises, and the record was overwhelmingly positive. Compassion, collaboration, and ingenuity had prevailed. The final test was approaching, but this confirmation gave humans renewed confidence and hope. The final test came suddenly. A planet-wide artificial drought was simulated by the aliens, affecting multiple continents at once. Crops wilted, reservoirs shrank, and people feared that famine would strike. Amara and teams of engineers, scientists, and volunteers had to act quickly. They implemented advanced irrigation systems using the alien energy devices, coordinated the distribution of remaining water, and mobilized refugee knowledge to introduce drought-resistant farming techniques. Children helped by monitoring water levels and organizing collection points. Once again, humanity rose to the challenge with intelligence and unity. Amara reflected on how far Earth had come. When 6 million refugees had arrived, the world had been thrown into chaos. Fear and uncertainty had dominated the early days, yet humans had chosen compassion, ingenuity, and collaboration over panic and cruelty. Refugees were not simply surviving, they were thriving alongside humans, contributing skills, ideas, and hope. Humanity had turned what was meant as punishment into an extraordinary demonstration of character. After weeks of the final crisis, the alien ships finally descended slightly closer, and a communication appeared. The message was clear and simple. Humanity has demonstrated the highest qualities. Compassion, ingenuity, courage, and collaboration are recognized. Earth is worthy. Relief and joy swept through the cities. People hugged, laughed, and cried. Volunteers and refugees celebrated together. Months of tireless work, countless crises, and acts of courage had culminated in universal recognition. Humanity had passed the test. Governments formally welcomed the refugees, granting citizenship and rights. Communities that had worked together during crises became permanent cooperative societies, sharing resources, knowledge, and culture. Schools incorporated lessons learned during the challenges into their curriculums. Technology salvaged from alien pods was adapted to improve infrastructure and quality of life. What had started as punishment had become an unprecedented opportunity for growth and unity. Amara stood on a hill overlooking the city, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. Children played safely, families shared meals, and volunteers coordinated ongoing projects. Refugees were fully integrated, sharing traditions, knowledge, and friendship. Humanity had not only survived but had thrived. Compassion had proven to be a source of strength, ingenuity had turned crises into solutions, and collaboration had ensured that no one was left behind. The alien ships departed slowly, leaving Earth to its own devices, yet humanity's story had already been rewritten. The message to the galaxy was clear. Humans were capable of incredible intelligence, courage, and morality. Compassion was not weakness, it was strength. Creativity and collaboration could overcome even the most extreme challenges, and when faced with adversity, humans could rise not only to survive but to inspire. Amara thought about the lessons learned. Fear had never been conquered by force but by understanding, empathy, and action. Crises had been solved through ingenuity and teamwork. Refugees were not burdens, they were partners and teachers. The hardest moments had shown the best of humanity, and now the world was stronger, wiser, and more united than ever before. The story of Earth became known throughout the galaxy. Other civilizations marveled at how humans had responded to the arrival of 6 million refugees, transforming potential disaster into a showcase of moral courage and intelligence. Humanity's reputation soared, not through conquest or power, but through the quiet, persistent brilliance of kindness, creativity, and collaboration. Amara watched the stars appear one by one as night fell. The alien ships were gone, but their judgment had been clear. Humanity had passed the test. Compassion had been chosen over cruelty, ingenuity over despair, and unity over division. Earth had not only survived its greatest challenge, it had shone as an example for the universe. In the coming years, humans and refugees built a new society together. Cities became models of sustainability and cooperation. Knowledge from across planets merged to create advanced technology and new ways of life. Children grew up learning that empathy, courage, and creativity were the most valuable tools they could carry. Humanity had proven itself, not only to the aliens but to itself. Amara smiled, thinking of all the people who had worked tirelessly, of the children who had taught lessons of cooperation, and of the refugees who had become friends and partners. Earth had faced punishment, but humanity had chosen compassion. And in that choice, they had achieved something truly extraordinary, a victory not just of survival, but of the human spirit. The galaxy had witnessed the remarkable story of humans, and the message was clear. Wherever humanity went next, they would carry with them the most powerful qualities in the universe: courage, intelligence, empathy, and the determination to do what is right. Earth had proven that even in the harshest trials, humanity could rise to greatness.